Morning, my dear students, and welcome back to the English online classes. Yes, again we are there with the chapter The Enemy, and I know you people might be thinking how long this chapter is going to take. Sorry, but it's one of the lengthiest chapter of your syllabus, and definitely if we would have taken it in the classroom it could have been a different scene, but you have to bear with me. And the previous videos, you have to be in touch with that if you really want to understand what I'm going to take for the further ones. So let's continue, and a quick recall. I'm going to be very fast. In this chapter we have seen the story circulates around Dr. Sadao, a Japanese doctor, his wife Hannah, and definitely the enemy, an American prisoner of war. And it so happens that one of an American warship soldier gets washed off and comes to the shore near Dr. Sadao's house, and he was in a very wounded state with a gunshot at the right lower back. And Dr. Sadao, he was caught in a dilemma with his wife what to do with this man. And because he was a doctor, he was fighting between the two of the emotion, one as a doctor and the other one as a Japanese. And lastly they both decided to take him home. And the big question was how the servants are going to react, but still they took him home in a very devastating state, and he was very weak. And after taking him home, the next question was to get him cleaned up. And when he was cleaned up, there was no one ready to do it. The servant was totally denying to do it, and then Hannah was left with no option, but she had to clean the man. And after cleaning the man, she waited for Dr. Sadao to come in, because Dr. Sadao had decided to operate on him, otherwise this man will die. And there, when she was just thinking about it, he appeared there in the surgeon coat with the surgeon bag. That means he had decided that he would be operating on him. And when he did thought of it, he wanted the assistance, and because of that he decided to take assistance from Hannah. And Hannah was a little uncomfortable, because till now she had never seen an operation, she had never encountered anything of that sort, but still she decided to help him. And while doing this, she helped him to give him anesthesia, so that anesthetic, so that he can be unconscious and don't feel the pain. And meanwhile she found Dr. Sadao totally engrossed in his work, and at last he found the bullet, and with a very precise clean incision he took the bullet out. And while he did this, the man, meanwhile Hannah was not comfortable, she even vomited, and Dr. Sadao was irritable that he could not help his wife, but he could not leave the man. And then all these things happened. In between that, the bullet was taken out, and the man mourned. He muttered something, to which Hannah reacted, but Sadao asked her to stay quiet. This is what we have done in the previous videos, and now let's continue with it. The man sank again into silence, so profound that Sadao took up his wrist, hating the touch of it. Yes, there was still a pulse, so faint, so feeble, but enough if he wanted the man to live, to give hope. But certainly I do not want this man to live, he thought. No more anesthetic, he told Hannah. He turned as swiftly as though he had never paused, and from his medicines he chose a small vial, and from it filled a hypodermic and thrust it into the patient's left arm. Then, putting down the needle, he took the man's wrist again. The pulse under his fingers fluttered once or twice, and then grew stronger. This man will live in spite of all, he said to Hannah, and sighed. Now here we have we came across the fact that the man, he muttered in his unconscious state, and then again he sank back into his silence, to which Sadao worried little, and he picked up his wrist to check his pulse. He hated doing that, the touch of his enemy, but he had no other choice, and he found that the pulse was very faint, very feeble it was. So, but it was enough for him to give a hope that he will live. And then he said to Hannah not to give any more anesthetic, and he found that basically this man, he was going down in his pulse rate. So what he did was that he took out one vial. Vial means a kind of a bottle in which the medicine is there, totally made of glass, and the tip of it is broken by the doctor, and the syringe is put inside and the medicine is taken out. So he took out one hypodermic vial. Hypodermic is a kind of a medicine given to the patient to make their heartbeat stronger and the pulse become stronger and stronger. And then he injected that medicine into the patient's left arm. Then he put the needle down and checked his pulse, and how he found that under his finger the pulse fluttered, means like a lub dub was there, like how heart beats now, like that, only a palpitation was there, and then it became stronger. And he commented to Hannah that this man is going to live in spite of all the things. The young man woke so weak, his blue eyes so terrified when he perceived where he was, that Hannah felt compelled to apologize. She herself served him, for none of the servants would enter the room. When she came in the first time, she saw him summon his small strength to be prepared for some fearful thing. Don't be afraid, she begged him softly. How come you speak English? He gasped. I was a long time in America, she replied. She saw that he wanted to reply to that, but he could not, and so she knelt and fed him gently from the porcelain spoon. He ate unwillingly, but still he ate. Okay, sorry for the disturbance, but the young man, he woke up. He was unconscious, so definitely he was supposed to wake up one day. So he woke up and he was very weak. But more than his weakness, his blue eyes were filled with terror. Can you guess why? Yes, when he woke up, he found that all around him was a Japanese setup. So he was totally frightened that where he had landed up. And he was so very frightened, and his blue eyes were filled with fright, that Hannah felt sorry for him. And she herself used to come to servant, because the servants have said no. And when first time when she came, she saw that he was trying to gather all his strength, and he was gathering the strength to face something very fearful. So she said softly to him, don't be afraid. And he was shocked. He said, how come you speak English? To that she replied that she had been staying in America for a long time. Then she saw that he wanted to reply, but he stayed quiet, and she also just knelt down and started feeding him from the bowl in which she had brought the food. He was not in a way to eat. He did not feel like eating, but still he ate the food. Now you will soon be strong, she said, not liking him and yet moved to comfort him. He did not answer. When Sadao came in the third day after the operation, he found the young man sitting up, his face bloodless with the effort. Lie down, Sadao cried. Do you want to die? After, like how we feed a small baby and we say, oh, you ate the food, now you're going to be strong. In the same way, she said, now you're going to be strong. But very, very odd type of situation, where at one place she don't like him, but she also moves forward to comfort him. He did not answer. After third day of the operation, Sadao came for doing the checkup. He has to check the person he operated on. So he found that the young man was trying to sitting up. He was trying to sit up, and his face has turned bloodless. Means he was very weak. So when he tried to sit down, it looks like as if though his face became bloodless in his effort. So Sadao shouted. He cried here, means he scolded him, and he said, what are you doing? Lie down. Do you want to kill yourself? He forced the man down gently and strongly and examined the wound. You may kill yourself if you do this sort of thing, he scolded. He made the man, to lie down, and then he examined the wound, and he said to him, like scolding him, He said, don't do it again. Don't do this, you'll kill yourself. So now what the young man said, or the young boy said, what are you going to do with me? The boy muttered. He looked just now barely 17. Are you going to hand me over? For a moment Sadao did not answer. He finished his examination and pulled the silk quilt over the man. I do not know myself what I shall do with you, he said. I ought, of course, to give you to the police. You are a prisoner of war. No, do not tell me anything. He put up his hand as he saw the young man was about to speak. Do not even tell me your name unless I ask it. Now the worried boy, he asked, what are you going to do with me? Are you going to hand me over? Sadao didn't answer for a moment. He did his examination, put the quilt over the man. He said that I myself don't know what I'm supposed to do with you. Of course, I'm supposed to give you to the police. After all, you are the prisoner of war. Then, when he saw that the boy was about to speak, he showed his hand, palm, towards him and he said that please don't tell me anything, not even your name, until I ask for it. They looked at each other for a moment and then the young man closed his eyes and turned his face to the wall. Okay, he whispered, his mouth a bitter line. Outside the door, Hannah was waiting for Sadao. He saw at once that she was in trouble. Now, both the boy and Dr. Sadao looked at each other. And then the young man closed his eyes and he turned his face towards the wall. He said, okay. And while he said this, his mouth, he held close. And outside, Hannah was waiting for Sadao and her face expression told some trouble. Sadao, Yumi tells me the servants feel they cannot stay if we hide this man here anymore, she said. She tells me that they are saying that you and I were so long in America that we have forgotten to think of our own country first. They think we like Americans. It is not true, Sadao said harshly. Americans are our enemies, but I have been trained not to let a man die if I can help it. What was the trouble? She said to Sadao, Yumi informed her that the servants are very uncomfortable and they are not happy. They are saying that they cannot stay here if they are going to keep this man here anymore. And she is also telling that because Hannah and Dr. Sadao stayed in America, they are having a soft corner for the Americans. Maybe some kind of liking. Dr. Sadao got angry and he said harshly in a rude tone, definitely not. They are my enemies, but I'm a doctor. And I have been trained that if I can save a life, I have to. The servants cannot understand that, she said anxiously. No, he agreed. Neither seemed able to say more, and somehow the household dragged on. The servants grew more watchful. Their courtesy was as careful as ever, but their eyes were cold upon the pair to whom they were hired. Hannah understood what Sadao said, but she said the servants will not understand all those things, and Sadao agreed to it. Again, things started moving on. It was just dragging. The servants, they started keeping a watch on the couple. And their courtesy, their respect seems to be little careful now. And their eyes were cold. Means the couple hired them to do work. They had to. But that respect, no, in their eyes, that has turned little cold. It is clear what our master ought to do, the old gardener said one morning. He had worked with flowers all his life and had been a specialist too in moss. For Sadao's father, he had made one of the finest moss gardens in Japan, sweeping the bright green carpet constantly so that not a leaf or a pine needle marred the velvet of its surface. My old master's son knows very well what he ought to do, he now said, pinching a bud from a bush as he spoke. When the man was so near death, why did he not let him bleed? In this coming paragraphs you will see the behavior of the servants, their thinking. The servants were all together, and the old man, who was the oldest servant and he was a gardener, he said to the others that I think our master know what he want to do or what he must do. And he was working with the flowers. He was a specialist in moss, and he has created the most beautiful moss garden for Sadau's father. And he sweeps this green carpety garden very often, so that not even a leaf or a pine needle will scar the velvetness of the garden. He says that my old master's son knows very well what he ought to do. And saying this, he pinched one bud from a bush. Why did he try to save the man? Why he did not let him bleed when he was so near to death? To that, and another servant answers that young master is so proud of his skill to save life that he saves any life. The cook said contemptuously. She split a fowl's neck skillfully and held the fluttering bird and let its blood flow into the roots of a wisteria vine. Blood is the best of fertilizers, and the old gardener would not let her waste a drop of it. Now the cook, when the old gardener said so, the cook, she said that maybe because our master is so skilled that he's so proud of his skill, he likes to save every second life, and he don't bother whether it is the life of an enemy. And he said this contemptuously, means you cannot say full of hatred, but a kind of a very harsh type of a tone. And she was cutting a fowl, a chicken, and she had held the fluttering bird, means she had cut the neck, so the bird was fluttering in her hand, and she let the blood of the bird go into the roots of a vine which was planted over there. Actually, blood is considered to be the best fertilizer, and the old gardener never wanted her to waste even a drop of it. It is the children of whom we must think, Yumi said sadly. What will be their fate if their father is condemned as a traitor? They did not try to hide what they said from the ears of Hannah as she stood arranging the day's flower in the veranda nearby. And she knew they spoke on purpose that she might hear. That they were right she knew too in the most of her being. There was another part of her which she herself could not understand. It was not sentimental liking of the prisoner. She had come to think of him as a prisoner. She had not liked him even yesterday when he had said in his impulsive way, anyway, let me tell you that my name is Tom. She had only bowed her little distant bow. She saw hurt in his eyes, but she did not wish to assuage it. Indeed, he was a great trouble in this house. Okay. When the conversation was going on between the servants, Yumi said that I am only concerned about the children. What will happen to them if their father is accused to be a traitor? And when the servants are talking all these things, no, whether the talk is of hatred, whether the talk is of accusing him, they every time made sure that it drops into the ears of Hannah. And while she was arranging the flowers, she overheard all those things. She knew that they were correct at some part, but there was some part of her which was not ready to accept this, because not that she had any concern or sentiments for the prisoner. She knew that this person was a prisoner of war and she had accepted him, and she did not like him because the previous day when he tried to introduce himself as Tom, she did not react much, just she bowed little the Japanese way, and she could see that he was hurt that he had tried to approach her with his name, but she did not react. Instead, she was little distant and aloof, but she made no movement, or she did not make any kind of step she took so that she could sympathize him or comfort him, because he was a trouble for the house, for her house. My dear students, I will bring the video to an end, taking only small parts of it so that you can clearly understand it, and hope that you people will go through the various videos, and let's meet again in the next video with the next few parts of the chapter. Till that time, goodbye and take care of yourself.